Imagine the city of Jericho, one of the oldest and busiest places of the time. The stone streets were wide and full of life. Caravans passed by carrying goods from distant lands. Merchants shouted, announcing their products, and the sound of animals mixed with the murmur of conversations. The sun's heat was intense, but life did not stop. On the roadside, sitting on an old dusty cloak, was Bartimaeus. He was a blind man, known by many who passed by. His face bore the marks of time, his skin battered by the sun and wind. His eyes, though open, saw nothing, only staring into emptiness. For Bartimaeus, each day was a challenge. He could not work and depended solely on the kindness of those who threw him a coin or offered him something to eat. His world was dark, but his heart still carried a spark of hope. Mornings began early for Bartimaeus. He took his usual place by the roadside, the strategic spot where people passed to enter and exit the city. There he would extend his hands, asking for alms. "Please, help a blind man. Have mercy on me," he would cry, while many ignored him. Some would give him a coin hurriedly, others would look with disdain, and there were those who didn't even notice him. Life seemed to be an endless cycle of rejection and waiting. But Bartimaeus was not just a blind beggar. He had attentive ears. Despite not being able to see, he paid attention to everything happening around him. The conversations, the murmurs of the crowds, the hurried footsteps, all were recorded in his mind like a sound map. And recently, he had heard something that ignited a new flame of hope in his heart. People were talking about a man named Jesus, a prophet coming from Nazareth. They said that he healed the sick, made the paralyzed walk, and even resurrected the dead. To Bartimaeus, these reports were more than stories. They were a ray of light in his darkness. He imagined what it would be like to meet this Jesus. Could he really heal someone like me? Bartimaeus wondered. If he healed others, perhaps he could also give me sight. The thought would not leave his mind. Every time he heard more rumors about the miracles, his faith grew. Bartimaeus had no proof, but he believed with all his might that Jesus was different. He did not know when or how, but he felt that if he had a chance to approach this man, his life would change forever. That day, sitting by the roadside, Bartimaeus could feel that something was different. The movement was greater than usual, and people seemed more agitated. There was a growing buzz, voices overlapping, a mix of excitement and curiosity in the air. He tilted his head, trying to catch what was happening. It was then that he heard someone say, "Jesus of Nazareth is passing by." The words echoed in his mind like the sound of thunder. Jesus was there in Jericho, passing by the road where Bartimaeus begged every day. That moment he had dreamed of had finally arrived. His heart began to beat faster. It was now or never. He knew he needed to act, even without seeing, even without knowing exactly where Jesus was in the crowd. All he had was his faith and his voice. And he was determined to use them. Bartimaeus took a deep breath. The blind beggar by the roadside was about to do something that would change his life forever. If you are feeling motivated and inspired by this content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss more videos like this. We will bring a series of content with biblical teachings and inspiring stories that motivate us to continue, that do not let us give up. We continue with the story. The sun was already high when Bartimaeus positioned himself in the same place as always, by the roadside. He spread his cloak over the dusty ground, hoping that some traveler would have mercy and give him a coin or at least a word of consolation. From early on, he noticed that the movement of people was different. There was a buzz spreading from one point to another along the road, as if the entire city was in agitation. Bartimaeus tried to understand what was happening. Voices came from all sides, some excited, others curious, and there were even those who seemed distressed. He strained his ears because, even without seeing, he could sense emotions by the tone of the voices. And there, amidst the commotion, he distinguished the words that would forever change his life. "Jesus of Nazareth is passing by." Bartimaeus's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that all the stories he had heard about miracles and healings were about to come to life. He recalled the reports that had reached his ears, the man who made the blind see, the paralyzed walk, and even resurrected the dead. Could that Jesus, whom everyone spoke so highly of, really be there, so close to him? With a mind racing, Bartimaeus tried to control his emotion. He felt a mix of joy, anxiety, and a little fear. What if I miss this chance? What if I can't speak to him? He thought, as he struggled to hear any mention of Jesus' name again. It was then that he decided to ask, with a slightly trembling voice from emotion, "What is happening?" Why all this rush? A person, hurried but with a gentle tone, replied, "It's Jesus of Nazareth. He is passing by here, towards the city's exit." At that moment, something ignited inside Bartimaeus. Something he had never felt so strongly before. It was as if a flame of faith blazed in his chest. Each beat of his heart reminded him that he could not stay still. This might be the only opportunity of my life, he thought. I need to meet him, I need him to help me. It was as if all the pain, all the humiliation, and all the exhaustion of a lifetime concentrated in a single moment. The hope, which was once just a seed, now blossomed strongly in his soul. Bartimaeus knew he could not let Jesus pass by without at least trying to approach him. From that moment on, nothing else mattered except finding a way to catch Jesus' attention. The other voices, the sun's heat, the aches in his body, all became secondary. He felt within himself a renewed courage, as if God himself were saying, "Do not fear, cry out for help." Bartimaeus took a deep breath. With his heart racing, he prepared to do whatever was necessary to change the course of his story. That was his time. The routine, so harsh and repetitive, had been interrupted by news capable of transforming not just the day, but his entire life. As Jesus and his disciples approached along the road to Jericho, the city buzzed with vibrant energy. The crowd following Jesus was large and diverse, men and women of all ages, entire families, traveling merchants, and even curious onlookers who came from afar just to hear his words. Amid this mass of people, Bartimaeus remained by the roadside, attentively observing every movement, every sound, every hurried step approaching. Bartimaeus, despite his blindness, possessed keen hearing and a sensitivity that allowed him to grasp the essence of conversations around him. He knew that Jesus was not an ordinary leader. Rumors about his miracles and revolutionary teachings were spreading quickly, touching hearts and changing lives. Today, however, he felt that his own journey was about to reach a crucial point. The sun in Jericho shone intensely, reflecting off the colorful garments of the crowd and the shine of the stone pavement. The temperature was scorching, but Bartimaeus felt a growing restlessness within himself, a mix of anxiety and hope that pushed him to act. He knew that the chance to meet Jesus was rare, perhaps the only opportunity of his life to experience complete transformation. With his voice weakened by time and daily struggle, Bartimaeus began to cry out. His voice, though weak and hoarse, carried an unwavering determination. "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me," he shouted with all the strength he had left. Each word was imbued with faith and desperation, a sincere plea for help and redemption. At first, his cry went almost unnoticed amidst the crowd's buzz. Hurrying people ignored him, absorbed in their own concerns and routines. But Bartimaeus did not give up. Feeling that his message had not yet reached Jesus' ear, he raised his voice, gaining strength and clarity. "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Now, his call was impossible to ignore. The reaction to his cry was immediate and intense. Those around him began to reprimand him, asking for silence with brusque gestures and harsh words. "Silence! Be quiet," some shouted, trying to disperse the blind man who dared to interrupt the orderly flow of the crowd. But Bartimaeus, moved by deep faith, did not let himself be discouraged. He understood that this was his chance to reach what he desired most, not just physical sight, but spiritual clarity and renewed hope. As people tried to silence him, Bartimaeus raised his voice even higher, his heart overflowing with hope and desperation. He was not just asking for himself, he was expressing an unwavering faith in Jesus' ability to perform miracles. Every time he was reprimanded, he responded with a louder cry, as if each word was a step closer to his healing. The crowd began to notice the intensity of his plea. Murmurs spread, and curiosity began to mix with the commotion. Some looked with compassion, others with impatience, but all were attentive to Bartimaeus' persistent call. He was not just asking for help, he was declaring his belief in Jesus' transformative power. Bartimaeus' persistence did not go unnoticed by Jesus. As he advanced along the road, he felt the cry coming from Bartimaeus. Something in his heart was moved by the determination and faith of that man. Jesus stopped, turning his gaze to the crowd, and his eyes met Bartimaeus's. In that moment, all the surrounding agitation seemed to diminish, and a sense of expectation hung in the air. Bartimaeus, now encouraged by Jesus' response, felt a wave of relief and hope. He knew that this instant would mark the beginning of a profound transformation in his life. His faith had been heard, and he was about to experience the miracle he had longed for. With his heart racing and his soul renewed, Bartimaeus was ready to take the next step in his journey of faith. As the crowd followed Jesus along the road to Jerusalem, the atmosphere was filled with expectation and agitation. The sound of hurried footsteps, the enthusiastic voices of followers, and the constant murmur of people created an electrifying atmosphere. In the midst of this dense crowd, Bartimaeus continued to cry out for Jesus, his voice initially muffled by the reprimands trying to silence him. However, his perseverance was about to be rewarded in a way that would change his life forever. Suddenly, Bartimaeus's cry caught Jesus' attention. Amid the turmoil, Jesus stopped abruptly, causing the surrounding crowd to quiet down, curious to understand the reason for the interruption. This simple gesture of stopping had a profound impact not only on Bartimaeus but on everyone present. The pause and the constant movement allowed everyone to feel the importance of the moment. Jesus, with his compassionate gaze, addressed the crowd and made a request that resonated with authority and gentleness. "Call this man." Jesus' words cut through the crowd, creating an immediate change in the atmosphere. Those who had previously reprimanded Bartimaeus now looked at him with surprise and admiration. "Encourage him. Get up, he is calling you," some people exclaimed, urging the blind man to approach. Bartimaeus, now with Jesus' attention focused on him, felt a mix of relief and expectation. With his heart pounding, he understood that this was the moment he had been waiting for his entire life. Without hesitation, Bartimaeus threw off his cloak, a symbolic act of abandoning his past of begging and accepting the new life he was about to receive. The heavy cloak represented the limitations and sufferings he had endured for so long, and by removing it, he was ready to embrace the transformation that was to come. With determined steps, Bartimaeus moved forward through the crowd, overcoming the haste and indifference surrounding him. Every step he took was a testament to his unwavering faith and renewed hope. The people around watched with curiosity and admiration as he approached Jesus, the man who promised healing and redemption. When Bartimaeus finally reached Jesus, there was a moment of reverent silence. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Jesus, seeing the determination and faith reflected in Bartimaeus' eyes, extended his hand to him with a welcoming smile. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked, his voice full of compassion and authority. At that moment, Bartimaeus felt all his doubts and fears disappear. He knew that this encounter would be the beginning of a new life, a life free from the darkness of blindness and filled with the light of faith and hope. Without words, just with his heart he responded, "Master, I want to see." Jesus' response was not just a question but an invitation for Bartimaeus to take control of his own destiny. It was a moment of empowerment, where Bartimaeus' faith met Jesus' action. The crowd watched in amazement as the blind man made the decision that would change his life forever. Jesus, touched by Bartimaeus' sincerity and faith, raised his hand and declared with authority, "Go, your faith has healed you." Immediately, Bartimaeus felt a light flood his eyes, dispelling the darkness that had enveloped him for so long. He opened his eyes to a new world, full of colors, shapes, and lives that were previously invisible to him. His sight was restored, but more than that, his soul was renewed with even deeper faith. As Bartimaeus stood up, now seeing clearly, the crowd applauded and exclaimed in admiration. He had not only regained his sight, but had also found a new direction for his life. With gratitude and joy, Bartimaeus chose to follow Jesus, becoming a living testimony of the power of faith and divine mercy. Jesus' response to Bartimaeus' cry not only transformed the blind man's life, but also left an indelible mark on all who witnessed the miracle. It was a powerful reminder that true faith can move mountains and that even in the darkest moments, the light of hope and divine grace is always present, ready to illuminate the path for those who dare to believe. The crowd following Jesus along the road to Jericho was filled with expectations and curiosity. Among the many who accompanied him, Bartimaeus, the blind man crying out for mercy, felt his heart beat faster. Each step he took towards Jesus represented the possibility of a complete transformation in his life. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and the air seemed to vibrate with the hope of those who believed in the Master's miracles. Finally, after persisting against the crowd's reprimands, Bartimaeus managed to reach the front of the group surrounding Jesus. With hesitant but determined steps, he moved forward through the dense crowd. The heat of Jericho's sun reflected off the colorful clothes of the people around him, and the sound of conversations and laughter mingled with a soft murmur of approval beginning to emerge in support of the blind man. When Bartimaeus was about to reach Jesus, the Master, noticing the presence and determination of that man, stopped. Silence briefly fell, as if time itself were waiting for the next action. Jesus, with his compassionate eyes fixed on Bartimaeus, asked a direct question that echoed in the air filled with expectation. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus' question was not just a formality. It was a profound invitation for Bartimaeus to express his most sincere desire. The sound of his voice was soft, yet filled with authority and compassion, causing everyone around to pay attention. Bartimaeus, moved by unwavering faith and renewed hope, did not hesitate. He knew exactly what he wanted, and the response came from his heart with clarity and determination. "Master, I want to see." The simplicity and sincerity of Bartimaeus' response were palpable. There was no ambiguity in his request. He wanted more than just physical sight. He sought clarity, hope, and a new direction for his life. His words reflected total confidence in Jesus' power, believing that this encounter would mark the beginning of a new era for himself. Jesus looked deeply into Bartimaeus' eyes, as if he could see beyond the darkness surrounding the man. There was an instant connection, a mutual understanding that this moment was special. The surrounding crowd watched attentively, some with tears in their eyes, others murmuring in admiration for the blind man's unwavering faith. With a gentle gesture, Jesus raised his hand and declared with authority, "Go, your faith has healed you." Jesus' words resonated in Bartimaeus' heart, filling him with an indescribable sense of relief and joy. As Jesus finished speaking, a bright light seemed to flood Bartimaeus' eyes, dispelling the darkness that had been his constant companion for so long. Slowly, he opened his eyes and for the first time, saw the world around him with clarity. The vibrant colors of the people's clothes, the details of Jericho's buildings, and even the faces of those around him became visible. Every element of the scene that was once invisible was now in his sight, revealing the beauty and complexity of the world he had lost for so long. Jesus' smile reflected the joy of the granted healing, and Bartimaeus felt a deep gratitude fill his being. The crowd erupted in applause and exclaimed in admiration, witnessing the miracle that had just occurred. Bartimaeus, now seeing clearly, felt a new life pulsate through his veins. He had not only regained his physical sight but had also found new hope and a renewed purpose. With tears of gratitude in his eyes, he chose to follow Jesus, committing to share his story of faith and transformation with everyone he met. This decisive moment marked the beginning of a new journey for Bartimaeus. Jesus' question had been the catalyst for change, and the faith-filled response had opened the doors to a bright future. Bartimaeus' story reminds us of the power of faith and the importance of recognizing and responding to divine calls, even in the most challenging moments of our lives. If you're enjoying this, please like the video so YouTube continues to recommend content like this and helps motivate us to keep going. We appreciate every second and may God bless you. After the profound exchange between Jesus and Bartimaeus, the atmosphere around seemed charged with expectation. The crowd watching this transformative moment fell silent, anticipating what was to come. Jesus, with his serene and compassionate gaze, uttered words that would echo through eternity. "Go, your faith has healed you." These words, simple and powerful, carried a divine authority that transcended any human understanding. The crowd watched in silence, the air heavy with the expectation of the miracle about to unfold. At the moment Jesus spoke, something extraordinary began to unfold. Bartimaeus, who had been living in physical and spiritual darkness, felt a pulsating energy coursing through his body. It was as if every cell of his being was being awakened from a deep sleep. Slowly, he began to perceive a faint light emanating around his closed eyes. The sensation was overwhelming. Bartimaeus felt as if the very barriers of his blindness were being dissolved by an invisible yet undeniably present force. The darkness that had accompanied him for so long began to dissipate, giving way to a soft and growing light that filled his world. With a gradual movement, Bartimaeus opened his eyes. The sight that was once denied to him now revealed itself before him with surprising clarity. At first, he noticed the vibrant colors of the people's clothes around him, each hue more vivid than he had ever imagined. The details of Jericho's stone path, the textures of the tents, and the smiles on the faces of passers-by became sharp and detailed. But what truly captured his attention was the figure of Jesus. For the first time, Bartimaeus could see the man who had become the center of his faith and hope. Jesus stood before him, radiating a presence that transcended mere physical appearance. There was an inner light emanating from him, an aura of peace and authority that filled the environment. Bartimaeus' eyes met Jesus's, and in that glance, he felt a deep and immediate connection. It was as if Jesus could see beyond his physical sight, perceiving his soul, his struggles, and his unwavering faith. Bartimaeus felt a wave of gratitude and relief flood his heart. He was free from darkness, not only physically but also spiritually, embracing a new life full of possibilities and hope. Bartimaeus's transformation did not go unnoticed by the crowd. People around him began to murmur in admiration, some with tears in their eyes, others with smiles of joy. The man who was once a blind beggar was now standing, seeing the world with new eyes and ready for a new journey. Jesus, observing the change in Bartimaeus, smiled with compassion and joy. He knew that this moment marked the beginning of a new story for Bartimaeus, a story of faith, redemption, and service. Bartimaeus's healing was more than a physical miracle. It was a powerful statement about the power of faith and the grace of God working in the lives of those who sincerely seek Him. Bartimaeus, now seeing clearly, felt a new direction in his life. He would not return to the roadside as before. Instead, he chose to follow Jesus, committing to share his story and live according to the faith that had saved him. His journey of faith was just beginning, and he was determined to walk a path of light and purpose alongside his Master. As the crowd continued to follow Jesus, Bartimaeus walked with him, each step filled with gratitude and hope. The restored sight was not just a physical gift but also a new spiritual vision, allowing him to see the world and himself in a completely new way. Bartimaeus's healing was a living testimony of the transformative power of faith and divine love, inspiring everyone around him to believe in the impossible and trust in God's mercy. After Bartimaeus's incredible healing, the transformation that would follow was more than just physical. It was a profound change of heart and purpose. The path he once walked as a lonely, ignored beggar was about to become a journey of faith and testimony. Bartimaeus, now standing with restored sight, felt a wave of gratitude and joy flood his being. He looked around, absorbing every detail of the world revealed to his eyes for the first time. The vibrant colors of Jericho's tents, the smiles of the people around him, and the serene presence of Jesus left an indelible mark on his soul. He knew his life would never be the same. As the crowd began to disperse, some who had witnessed the miracle approached Bartimaeus with words of encouragement and admiration. "You saw what Jesus did for you," said a young man who had watched the miracle. "He truly is the Son of God." These words resonated deeply within Bartimaeus, reinforcing the decision he was about to make. Instead of returning to the roadside, where he had spent his days begging, Bartimaeus felt an inner calling to follow Jesus. He knew that his new sight was not just a physical gift, but also a spiritual opportunity. The darkness that once limited his existence was being replaced by a light of hope and purpose. With firm steps and a heart full of determination, Bartimaeus approached Jesus. The Master, seeing the transformation in Bartimaeus, smiled with compassion and welcome. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, extending his hand to him. Bartimaeus, without hesitation, accepted the invitation, feeling as if he was beginning a new life. Bartimaeus's decision to follow Jesus was a powerful testimony of the power of faith. He left behind the apparent security of begging, fully trusting in Jesus' leadership and promise. This choice was not easy. It meant abandoning the only stability he knew and facing the unknown. However, the faith he had demonstrated by crying out to Jesus now guided him with unwavering certainty. As Bartimaeus walked alongside Jesus, he began to experience an inner transformation. The doubts and fears that once haunted him were replaced by serene peace and contagious joy. He listened to Jesus' teachings attentively, absorbing each word as a precious treasure. Jesus' presence nourished his soul, strengthening his faith and inspiring him to live according to the principles he was learning. Bartimaeus' change did not go unnoticed by the community around him. Those who knew him as the blind beggar now saw a man of purpose and hope. Some approached to thank him, sharing their own stories of how Jesus' miracles had touched their lives. Bartimaeus, with his new sight and understanding, became a link between Jesus and those still seeking faith and healing. His journey as a follower of Jesus was marked by acts of generosity and compassion. Bartimaeus never forgot the hand that healed him, and in return, dedicated himself to helping others in need. He used his own experience of transformation to inspire and encourage those facing similar challenges. His life became a living testimony of the power of faith and divine mercy, showing that, regardless of circumstances, hope and redemption are always within reach for those who seek. Moreover, Bartimaeus began sharing his story with others, recounting how his faith in Jesus had freed him from darkness and granted him new sight. He spoke with passion and conviction, knowing that his experience could be the light guiding others toward faith. His words resonated with authenticity and sincerity, touching many hearts and strengthening the community of Jesus' followers. Bartimaeus' transformation also brought a new perspective to his own life. He began to value each day as a gift, using his newly acquired sight to appreciate the beauty of the world around him and to recognize the small blessings that often go unnoticed. His gratitude was evident in every action and word, reflecting the profound inner change that had occurred. As Bartimaeus followed Jesus, he witnessed other miracles and teachings, each reinforcing his faith and commitment. He saw firsthand Jesus' compassion and love, learning to live more fully and meaningfully. Through these experiences, Bartimaeus grew spiritually, becoming not just a follower but also a faith leader within the community. Bartimaeus' story is an inspiring example of how faith can transform lives in deep and lasting ways. From a blind beggar to a beacon of hope and perseverance, Bartimaeus demonstrated that with faith and trust, it is possible to overcome adversity and find a greater purpose. His journey continues to inspire generations, reminding us that true transformation comes from within and that, with faith, we can face any challenge and find the true vision that illuminates our path. Bartimaeus' story transcends time and space, resonating through the centuries as a powerful testimony of faith, perseverance, and hope. From the moment Bartimaeus cried out to Jesus for mercy, his journey became an eternal lesson for all who face adversities and seek divine intervention in their lives. Imagine yourself walking through the busy streets of Jericho, surrounded by a diverse and noisy crowd. Amidst this chaos, Bartimaeus' story stands out as a beacon of unwavering faith. Even being constantly reprimanded and ignored, Bartimaeus did not give up. He persisted in his cry, believing that Jesus would hear his plea for help. This determination resonates deeply in our hearts today, reminding us that even in the most difficult circumstances, faith can guide us through the darkness. Throughout the centuries, countless people have been inspired by Bartimaeus' story. Whether in times of war, disease, personal loss, or financial crises, Bartimaeus' message offers comfort and encouragement. He teaches us that no matter how insurmountable the obstacles may seem, a heart full of faith and a sincere voice can catch God's attention and bring about transformation. Think of modern situations where people face seemingly insurmountable challenges. It might be battling a serious illness, losing a loved one, or struggling to find purpose in life. Bartimaeus' story serves as a reminder that it is never too late to seek divine help. His journey from a blind beggar to a follower of Jesus inspires everyone to keep believing, to continue faith, and to cry out for miracles even when everything seems lost. Furthermore, Bartimaeus' transformation from beggar to follower highlights the importance of responding to faith. When Bartimaeus answered Jesus' call, he not only received physical healing but also a new spiritual vision. This profound change shows that true faith not only solves immediate problems but also redirects lives toward a greater purpose. It is a powerful message that faith can lead us to a more meaningful and fulfilling existence. Bartimaeus' message also teaches us about the importance of recognizing and acting when God's call presents itself. Often, we go unnoticed in the crowd of our own lives, preoccupied with our worries and distractions. Bartimaeus reminds us that even when we are called amidst chaos, we must pay attention and respond with courage and faith. His example of throwing off the cloak, a symbol of his old life, and following Jesus inspires us to let go of our own burdens and follow the path of faith. The resonance of this story through the centuries also highlights the universality of the human experience. Regardless of culture, language, or era, Bartimaeus' struggle for visibility and help is something many can relate to. This universality makes his story a connecting link between different generations and communities, reinforcing the idea that faith and hope are unifying forces that transcend all barriers. In our own lives, we can find echoes of this message in moments of despair and uncertainty. Bartimaeus' story encourages us to keep our faith strong, even when facing rejection and adversity. It reminds us that by sincerely crying out for help and believing in God's transformative power, we can experience personal miracles that change the course of our lives. Additionally, Bartimaeus' message is a celebration of human resilience and the ability to find light in darkness. His journey from a state of dependence to a position of spiritual leadership illustrates the possibility of growth and transformation that lies within each of us. It is a call for us to seek not only healing but also spiritual renewal and the strengthening of our faith. Finally, Bartimaeus' story invites us to reflect on our own relationship with faith and spirituality. It challenges us to be like Bartimaeus, to persist in our search for meaning and healing, to trust in divine power, and to be open to the transformations that faith can bring. It is a reminder that no matter the difficulties we face, there is always the possibility of a new beginning and renewed vision. As we look back to the ancient city of Jericho and Bartimaeus' life, we realize that his story is not just a tale of physical healing but a rich narrative of faith, courage, and transformation. The message he left us continues to echo, inspiring us to cry out for miracles, persevere in faith, and believe that even in the most desperate situations, the light of hope and divine grace is always present, ready to illuminate our path. Thus, Bartimaeus' story remains alive in our hearts and minds, serving as a beacon of hope and an eternal reminder that it is never too late to seek divine intervention. May we all find the strength to cry out in faith, the courage to persevere, and the hope that, like Bartimaeus, we can see the light even in the deepest darkness. Bartimaeus' story shows us that faith is not just an abstract feeling. It is a force capable of generating real change. The blind man who refused to accept his condition, who persisted even when reprimanded, and who threw off his cloak to answer Jesus' call teaches us that perseverance finds a response in divine compassion. In our own lives, we may sometimes feel like Bartimaeus, blind amidst adversities and lacking perspective. But if we do as he did, crying out sincerely from the heart with unwavering faith, we will realize that we are not alone. There will always be a response from above, a door that opens, a light that illuminates our path. It is an invitation for us, like Bartimaeus, to place our trust in Christ, abandoning everything that holds us back from the past and walking toward a renewed life. After all, those who know the transformative power of this encounter understand that the miracle is not just physical, it changes our way of seeing the world, ourselves, and God. Therefore, at the end of this story, the message remains: have the courage to cry out, for the Master listens and responds. Have the boldness to cast off what prevents you from moving forward, for true healing happens when we unite faith and surrender. And remember that it is never too late to trust in divine power, even when everything around seems dark. Bartimaeus is proof that when we acknowledge our need and turn sincerely to God, we find not only solutions to momentary problems but also a new reason to live, a journey of hope, joy, and purpose, guided by the one who is always willing to hold our hand and lead us to true light. As Bartimaeus' story reaches its climax, we are invited to reflect on the profound transformation he experienced and the eternal lessons his journey offers us. From days of darkness and despair to moments of clarity and purpose, Bartimaeus' life is a powerful testament to the power of faith, perseverance, and divine mercy. Bartimaeus began his journey as a blind man, begging by the busy road of Jericho. Each day, he faced the harsh reality of survival, dependent on the uncertain generosity of passers-by. The darkness surrounding his eyes symbolized not only his physical blindness, but also the limitations and challenges that seemed insurmountable. However, even in this condition, Bartimaeus kept a flame of hope alive in his heart, fueled by rumors about Jesus, a man who performed miracles and proclaimed the kingdom of God. Bartimaeus' routine was interrupted when the news that Jesus of Nazareth was passing through Jericho reached his ears. This news was not just information, it was a promise of possibility and change. For Bartimaeus, who had faced days of rejection and darkness, this was the chance he had been waiting for. The hope that was once just a glimpse began to strengthen, preparing him for what was to come. Determined not to let this opportunity slip away, Bartimaeus stood up amidst the crowd, crying out with unwavering faith, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Even in the face of reprimands and attempts to silence him, he persisted. His cry was not just a request for physical sight, but a plea for redemption and spiritual transformation. Bartimaeus's determination to keep his faith alive, even when everything seemed against him, resonates deeply with our own daily challenges and battles. Bartimaeus's perseverance was rewarded when Jesus stopped to attend to his cry. This simple act of stopping was a decisive moment that changed the course of Bartimaeus's life forever. The crowd, which had previously tried to silence him, now encouraged him to approach Jesus. With courage and faith, Bartimaeus threw off his cloak, symbolizing his willingness to leave behind his past of begging and embrace the new life he was about to receive. This act of casting off the cloak is a powerful symbol of transformation and rebirth, something we can all relate to when we decide to leave behind old habits and seek a new path. When Bartimaeus finally approached Jesus, he was confronted with a question that required a heartfelt response. "What do you want me to do for you?" Without hesitation, he responded with pure and direct faith, "Master, I want to see." This moment was not just about regaining physical sight, but about recognizing and accepting divine intervention in his life. The simplicity and sincerity of Bartimaeus's response demonstrate the depth of his faith and complete trust in Jesus' power to transform his life. Jesus' response, "Go, your faith has healed you," was the catalyst for Bartimaeus's miraculous restoration of sight. In that instant, the darkness surrounding him dissipated, revealing a world full of colors, shapes, and lives he had lost for so long. More than the physical healing, Bartimaeus experienced a spiritual renewal, feeling liberated from the limitations that once imprisoned him. The restored sight not only allowed him to see the world around him, but also to see himself with a new perspective of purpose and faith. The healing was just the beginning of Bartimaeus's transformation. Instead of returning to the roadside, he chose to follow Jesus, becoming a living testimony of the power of faith. His life, once marked by darkness and dependence, now shone with perseverance and hope. Bartimaeus dedicated himself to sharing his story, inspiring others to maintain their faith even in the face of adversity. He became a figure of spiritual leadership, helping to strengthen the community of Jesus' followers with his experience of transformation and unwavering faith. Bartimaeus's story resonates through the centuries as a powerful message of hope and faith. It teaches us that even in the face of the greatest obstacles and the harshest reprimands, a sincere and persevering faith can be heard and rewarded. Bartimaeus reminds us that it is never too late to cry out for a miracle, and that faith can transform our lives in deep and unexpected ways. His journey from a blind beggar to a follower of Jesus is an eternal testimony that faith can overcome darkness, bringing light, clarity, and purpose to our lives. As we reflect on Bartimaeus's life, we are inspired to face our own challenges with the same faith and determination. His story encourages us to never give up, even when obstacles seem insurmountable. Just like Bartimaeus, we can find strength in our faith, believe in God's transformative power, and be willing to respond to divine calls in our lives. Each of us has the capacity to experience a similar transformation, to leave behind the shadows of our limitations and embrace the light of hope and faith. Bartimaeus's journey reminds us that no matter where we start, with faith and perseverance, we can achieve the true vision that illuminates our path and guides us to a life of purpose and fulfillment. May Bartimaeus's story inspire us to keep our faith firm, to cry out for help when needed, and to believe that with God by our side, we can overcome any adversity. Let us all follow Bartimaeus's example, transforming our lives through faith, and becoming living testimonies of the divine love and mercy that surrounds us. This conclusion not only recaps the main moments of Bartimaeus's story, but also offers a deep and motivational reflection, encouraging the audience to apply the lessons of his journey in their own lives. The narrative is designed to engage audiences of all ages, maintaining the relevance and inspiration that Bartimaeus' story provides. Thank you for watching until here, and don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to see more content like this and inspiring, motivational, and interesting stories of overcoming challenges. Until next time.